Madam Chair, members of the board, my last presentation this evening is the proposed budget. Good evening again, Chairman Profit, Vice Chair Leary, school board members, and the viewing public. I'm pleased to present my proposed budget for the fiscal year 1920 this evening. Tonight, we'll highlight the priorities included in the proposed budget, as well as review specifics related to anticipated revenues and expenditures. I'm going to start this portion of the presentation to provide a high-level overview, and I've asked Ms. Lucente to assist with the second portion, which includes specific details. The agenda for this evening's presentation is included on this slide. However, please let me know at any time during the presentation if you have questions or need clarification. When I started in July, my main focus was to listen and learn as much as I could about Chesapeake Public Schools. I've traveled to all 7 high schools and hosted events asking our employees and community members to share information about our great school division. I also posted an online survey that asked the same 4 questions that I asked during the meet and greet events. And they were, what are our strengths? What are our traditions? What are the things that should stay the same, things that I shouldn't change? And what are our challenges? The results of this information were presented to the board on November 19, 2018. The feedback gathered from all meet and greets, the online survey, and my personal visits to all schools and centers helped us develop our new strategic plan, Empower 2025. For a strategic plan to be truly meaningful, it must be utilized as a playbook for our school division to plan for future initiatives, funding, and allocation of resources. The priorities included in my budget proposal this evening will closely align with each of the 4 goals identified in our new plan. These goals are the focus of our strategic planning efforts. I'd like to take a few minutes to discuss each goal and highlight where we plan to allocate necessary resources in order to progress toward our mission. Our first goal is to provide exemplary teaching and learning experiences. I'm pleased that we have several initiatives included in this proposal to address this essential goal. First of all, we have included funds to expand full-day kindergarten to 3 additional schools, Great Bridge Primary, Hickory Elementary, and Deep Creek Elementary. We have also developed a clear plan of action and hope to have all schools offering full-day kindergarten within the next 3 years. In addition, we are moving forward with a high school alternative education program that will utilize our existing facilities at Chesapeake Alternative School to implement an evening program that will be an important first step in meeting the needs of all of our students. This program is slated to begin in fall of 2019. Also, this budget proposal includes additional staff to allow us to offer art to elementary students each week. This will not only allow us to increase the amount of time for art instruction, but enhance our current program to incorporate instruction in STEAM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math. For an added benefit, this will provide elementary teachers with additional planning time during the school day. In addition, we have added a coordinator for workforce development that will assist students who are seeking internship experiences with local industries and employers. Additional job coaches at the high school level are also included in this proposal to help students transition into the workforce. Finally, this budget proposal includes additional instructional staff to address anticipated growth as well as to reduce class size where possible. The next goal in our strategic plan is to recruit, retain, and support our valued employees. The first item included is increasing tuition reimbursement, which is so important. We value our employees and support their continued education. This is something we heard in our surveys, and we know it is important to our employees. We are putting aside funds for salary increases and adjustments. Based on the governor's proposed budgetary amendments, Chesapeake needs to provide a minimum of a 2% increase to meet the 5% requirement over the biennium. As you recall, we implemented a 3% salary increase this year. It is my desire to provide at least a 3% raise for all employees. The $12.2 million included in this budget proposal could support this increase as well as provide strategic funding to address the results of the salary study, which we hope to have completed by May. It is important to note that the final salary increase will be determined when the state budget has been finalized. We have included $1.67 million to cover anticipated increases in health insurance costs. This number is based on a predicted 5% increase in health care costs. However, we are only in the 2nd month of our plan year, and we're hopeful that the final number will most likely be less than expected. Providing a safe and supportive learning environment continues to be a top priority for us, as you just heard this evening. This proposal includes additional counselors and additional psychologists and clinic specialists. We recognize that this is not enough because we are seeing an increase in the number of students facing unique challenges related to mental health and trauma, but this is a positive first step to address this issue. In addition, accurate record keeping regarding our students is essential, and increasing the number of data quality secretaries will help us meet this need. This proposal also includes increased funding for safety to include cameras and other sound and security equipment. This is an ongoing expense, but this extra push will help much needed replacement cycles that have lagged behind over the last several years. Finally, we received feedback that additional security was needed at our athletic events, and this budget includes an increase for security coverage and after-hours activities. The final goal is to engage, inform, and collaborate with the community to support our mission. The intent of my school visits was to engage and collaborate with our community. We've continued these efforts with our superintendent's planning council meetings, which I know board members attend. In addition, I meet regularly with groups such as the Parent-Teacher Organization, the Chesapeake Education Association, the Chesapeake Public Schools Education Foundation, and the Chesapeake Association of Educational Office Professionals. We continue to work towards strengthening our military partnerships through regular meetings with our school liaison officer to support the needs of our military-connected students and families, and I look forward to continuing these relationships and focusing on an expansion of our school community partnerships. We are continuing to evaluate and strengthen our communication channels to increase stakeholder involvement, to include the addition of social media, enhancing our website, and exploring the use of additional communication tools. You may note that there are no specific funds allocated in the budget proposal for this particular area. However, we are restructuring positions and reallocating existing funds to address this important initiative, and we'll be talking more about that over the next several months. As a reminder, I've just provided a high-level overview of the priorities included in this budget proposal. In future meetings, I've asked staff to provide the board with additional details, including presentations on our proposed high school alternative education program, because I want you to learn more about that, the implementation of the STEAM program at our elementary level, as well as a detailed 3-year plan for our full-day kindergarten implementation. At this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Lucente to come forward to provide additional details included in the budget proposal.
Thank you, Dr. Cotton. The budget presentation that you're going to see tonight related to the details is based on the governor's proposed budget from December of 2018. The proposal for the superintendent's proposed for 1920 assumes an enrollment increase of 225 students from budget to budget, not actual to budget, but budget to budget. So we are expecting continued student growth. And as you can see, the expenditures below, we are anticipating going from $505 million overall, operating grants and special funds, to about $533.9 million. So we're looking at a $28.7 million increase overall. That's for operating grants and special funds. If we look at just the operating revenues, we are anticipating about $12.5 million in state revenue increases. We're not looking at any increases in federal or other local. And the city revenue sharing formula forecast for next year is providing a $10.1 million increase. As you can see, we are not anticipating using any city actual over budget, and we have no estimate on reversion for 18-19, and there is no carryover from 17-18. So the operating budget overall increase in revenues is about 21.3, almost $21.4 million. This is just a comparison slide between what the General Assembly approved and what the governor's budget amendments contain. The compensation increase has already been mentioned, both during the legislative update and by Dr. Cotton, and the General Assembly had anticipated 3% effective 7/1/19. The governor's proposed amendment says 5% as of 7/1/19. One of the other large increase differences is the lottery funding from the original General Assembly proposed, or General Assembly adopted budget, to the governor's proposed. The support cap is still in place, and that is costing Chesapeake about $10 million a year, and the lottery is continuing to supplant the general fund.
We have a
Sir,
question,
yes, ma'am.
please. Mr. Woods?
Ms. Lucente, the lottery funding, what was the lottery funding last year? Do you have that?
The actual, the revenues for it?
Right.
Yes, sir. The lottery revenues last year, you mean just for the, not total, or just the
Right.
specific per
And my
pupil?
question is, my understanding of the lottery funding over the years has been zero, right?
For several years, yes.
Right, so,
For 18-19, the budgeted amount was $8.7 million.
okay. So what is that over last year? Do you have that?
The year before, 17-18, the budget was $7 million. So that was like the first year or the second year that they actually gave us back a per pupil amount.
Okay. All right. I was
So-
just trying to figure out when the zeros stopped. That was last year, right?
Well, I think it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago,
2
okay.
years ago.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. The purpose of this slide is to show you the impact of the adjustments to the budget and how it affects basic aid. You remember that the revenues that we're using in here are on the governor's proposed, which included additional funding for the guidance change, which is 23.7 positions. So the cost of those 23.7 positions are included in that $172 million number that is the total SOQ basic aid. And the reason we wanted to put this slide out here is because it's a little confusing sometimes when you see an increase in enrollment and a decrease in basic aid, because it makes sense that you should get more money. But you remember that when the state does basic aid, they figure out the total cost of basic aid first. Then they subtract the sales tax, and then that remaining amount is split between the city and the state. So the increase in basic aid is going from 170.4 to 172.2, and included in that $1.7 million increase is the funding for student growth and for the additional guidance positions. But when you factor in the large increase in sales tax, you're actually going to see, well, you won't see that number in the budget because this is General Assembly to Governor's proposed. There's a decrease in basic aid. You'll see about a $100,000 decrease in budget to budget because it's General Assembly 18-19 to Governor's proposed 19-20. But that kind of gives you an explanation that when sales tax goes up, whether we receive that sales tax or not, that's the number that the state is going to use to fund us. So we have to monitor not only enrollment, but sales tax receipts. Clear as mud? Okay.
You're good.
The total operating expenditures, of course, equal the revenues of $476.5 million with an increase of 21.35. We're going to go now and do each category like we started to do last year. Of that $21.3 million, 17.7 will be going to personnel and fringe benefits. That's the largest area of the budget to begin with, so it's expected that that should get the largest share of any increase. We're anticipating a little over $1 million increase in purchase services, $420,000 in charges, a little over $722,000 in materials and supplies, and the next largest after personnel and fringe will be capital outlay. That's been a seriously neglected area because we have not been able to address some of the needs there because of revenues, but apparently this year is hopefully going to be the beginning of 10 or 15 years of good revenues. The total increase in personnel is $17.7 million, almost 17.8, and the lion's share of it is going to compensation increases, some sort of base increase between 2, 3, 4, hopefully if we can make it, but also the results of the salary study. Traditionally, we've done a salary study in 3 years. We haven't done one in over 10 years, so we don't have any idea where we are in relation to market, so it's a little bit difficult to say how much of that money would go towards a salary study. But as Dr. Cotton pointed out, it's his desire to give at least 3% or something close to it. You'll see $3.6 million for additional positions. That's a net cost. There are additional positions in the budget. Health insurance, we had to assume a 5% increase. As Dr. Cotton mentioned, we are only 1 to 2 months into the current plan year. We don't have yet have any information about benefit plan design changes and how that's going to impact, but we had very good experience last year, and 5% may be high, but we won't know that till we get a little bit further into the year. And as Dr. Cotton mentioned earlier, we are $241,000, almost $242,000 for tuition assistance. And that takes us back to the levels we were at before the economic downturn. Inside the personnel, the new number for personnel, the $3.6 million, we have 9 positions, 9 teachers and 9 teacher assistants, 18 positions total to institute full-day kindergarten in those 3 schools. We have 26 teachers for growth, 15 teacher assistants. There's 16 guidance for the SOQ change, and that's different in the Senate budget. It's a little bit less, but this is all based on the governor's. The expansion of art and STEAM will take about 17 positions. An expansion of the current job coaches, additional 7, which will assist with providing for all the high schools and expansion and support into special ed. The workforce development coordinator, the psychologist, the data quality, and you can see what's up there. There are 2 security technicians placed in there to assist with the realignment of safety and security, and then the first line of response and repair on equipment repairs that right now is largely being done by contractors. The 2 assistant principals for growth and 1 library and media specialist for growth at elementaries. So the $3.6 million includes everything except the health insurance costs for those positions. Purchase services are just a little bit over $1 million. Again, the largest share, as it is almost every year, is CSEP and TRAE-UP tuition. There's an increase for IT, for software licenses, maintenance and support, a small increase for school plants. There's a desire to look at the transportation routing analysis with the addition of the small capacity buses for use in academy runs. It provides an opportunity to do a realignment and a reassessment on the routes. There is money in there for athletic, as you heard Dr. Cotton mention. There was a request for additional security at middle school and high school athletic events, so there was an increase there. There's been an increase in the CTE industry certifications, and various other small increases add up to just under $16,000. In our charges, the largest increase in here is for the broadband enhancement that has been discussed before with the board. It's for the Cox fees and the wide area network lines. Athletic memberships for VHSL and some travel registration and conferences increases. Materials and supplies, the largest piece here is for full-day kindergarten. That's materials, supplies, furniture, everything you need to start those 9 classrooms. There's an increase in the middle and high school athletic and student activity support. As you recall, in 1819, we put some money in there to specifically support the schools to do less fundraising, less dependence on fundraising activities to support athletics and student activities. The $111,000 for computers and laptops and carts includes computers for the new positions. So any new positions that ultimately are adjusted or changed or modified, that number will be adjusted. There's a small increase for textbooks. We did not decrease the dollar amount for textbooks, but there's a small increase. Instructional furniture has seen a good increase, and the draw accounts is strictly related to enrollment. There's no increase in the per pupil amounts in there. There is, however, an increase in the repairs and materials and supplies for security cameras, DVRs, and monitors. There's also an increase for nursing supplies at the schools, as well as psychology testing kits and the supplies and materials to maintain the AEDs, including their batteries and pads and things like that. Various other small increases throughout materials and supplies is just over $14,000. Again, capital outlay is our second largest area of increase, and this is an area that's been very difficult to address in the last several years. Almost all the items on here are lease purchases, either 10-year in the case of the buses or 3 to 5 years in the case of the other equipment. You can see the bus replacements. We're planning on 42 to 43 buses with a 10-year lease purchase. There will be another 8 or 9 that can be purchased out of the $1 million that's in the lockbox. That's a cash purchase. The white fleet and heavy equipment lease purchases are for dump trucks, tire trucks, front-end loaders, things like that are used by school plants and by transportation. The $120,000 is to recognize the net impact of the lease purchase for the small capacity buses that were purchased this year to assist with academy runs. There's just under $100,000 for touch panels for the 9 full-day kindergarten classes. And there's equipment lease purchase for transportation for floor lifts and pedestal lifts.
Ms.
Yes,
Lucente,
ma'am.
could you please explain what a touch panel is?
Where's Kate when you need her? It's a replacement for a smart board that is less bulb dependent, and it's a large, it's like a large iPad, I guess is the best way to describe it. That's what he said, a large TV with a touch screen.
We have one question, please, Dr. King.
For the kindergarten supplies, it was on a previous slide, was that just for the 9 new kindergartens, or?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Everything you see on here that's related to full-day kindergarten is for those 9 classes in those 3 schools.
One more question, Ms. Lucente.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Leary.
Did I hear you say that the bus replacement, the leases are only going to be 10 years?
Yes, that's the most you can do on a bus
Right,
replacement.
because didn't the state increase that to like 15 years at one point?
That's the replacement cycle.
Oh, okay.
There's a replacement cycle that went from 12 to 15, and then
Right.
several years ago, they allowed you to purchase buses on a 10-year lease
Okay.
because the life is longer
All
than
right,
10
thank you.
years. So that's the distinguishment there. The last piece is custodial equipment. That's another area that we have had great difficulty in trying to get that equipment replaced timely. So we were able to, what we feel is do an awful lot with the $21 million that we did get. There are a lot of things that we have not been able to address in the last several years. In the special funds, school nutrition, as you know, has a requirement to keep a relationship between the cost of a meal and the federal reimbursement rate. There's no anticipated increase for breakfast for adults or students, but there is a 5-cent increase required on lunch and for students and adults. The last item really relates to the city actual over budget. In the last several years, we've had to use the actual over budget to support the operating budget. This is part of the revenue sharing true-up. So the city for 17-18 actually had $5 or $8 million worth of excess revenue over what they budgeted. After they followed the formula, our half of that is $2,547,000. Everything that you see here was part of a request that was in the operating budget that could not be met. So as a way to get back to the standards of using those funds in a one-time manner, rather than leave those items in the operating budget, we're recommending and requesting that you request council to appropriate to the CIP, and it would be used for these items, many of which are related to items that haven't been addressed in a long time, and that could be related to safety and security issues, such as the IP phone replacements and the exterior speakers for schools and the auditoriums, stadium sound systems. The last thing I have to cover is a brief update on the General Assembly. We just got the calc tools today. We got information about what the proposals were last week, but we didn't see the details until today. So it's a very high-level kind of analysis. Ooh, that's harder to read than I thought it was going to be. I'm sorry. Under the governor's proposed budget, again, we've said it's 5% as of 7/1/19. Under the House, it's 5% at 1/1/2000. So that's a 6-month shift, and that saves the state some money. In the Senate, it's 5%, but there's some interesting language in there. If your 2-year raise over 18-19 and 19-20 is less than 3%, you get no money from the state. If your raise is 4%, you'll get 4%. But in order to get the 5% money, your raise in 18-19 and 19-20 has to average 6%. So that's why it's not 5 and 5. I went to look at that and I went, that's an interesting requirement. So that's the basic difference between these 3 proposals on the compensation. In the at-risk funds, the governor proposed increases. The House has removed those. The Senate went along with what the governor had. In the House version, there is a small increase in the per-pupil amount on the revenue side that does not contained in the governor's or the Senate budget. There is one item in the House budget that is not in either of the other 2 budgets, and that's an increase in the retiree health care credit. As you recall, the board approved that health care credit many years ago on professionals to provide that $4 per month per year of service towards retiree health care. They changed the amortization period from 25 to 20 years, so that increased the rate that we would be charged. So that rate has 2 impacts. It's a little bit of additional revenue, but it's a whole lot more expense than it is revenue. So what you'll see is, under the House, the impact of all those items would be a revenue reduction from the governors of $418,823, but it would also be an expenditure increase of $340,000. So the net comparison of the House to the governor's proposed is a shortfall or a reduction of $759,496. Under the Senate, the reduction is all revenue, and it's $1,525,369. So the best proposal out there is the governor's proposal. So,
Ms. Lucente,
Yes,
we have a
ma'am.
question, please, Mr. Mercer.
Just a question, and I don't know whether it's a typo or whether it's actually right here, but when you were looking here at the 5% for the House for compensation starting 1/1, to get the 5% from the state, you have to give 6%? Or is
under
it-
the Senate,
Under the Senate, you have to give
it says you
6%?
have to have an average of 5%, an average of 6%, I think it was, over the 2 years to get the 5%.
Okay, that just,
It was
you do
really
4%,
strange.
you get 4%. If you do 6%, then you only get 5%. That doesn't make sense.
It didn't either, and I will double-check that, but that's how I read it. I was-
Okay, but that one does kick in on 7/1, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so because it doesn't say that here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So
I
the
left
Senate
that
one
out.
actually, when you look at it, actually is the better one if you don't take the governor's proposal of the two,
Well, actually,
if it's
there are
5%.
there are other adjustments in the Senate that make the revenues go down $1.5 million.
Okay. all right.
Yeah, that's why. This was just the highlights of the main things that most people listening, both of them, would be interested in.
Okay.
Okay, so the next meeting is February 25th, and as Dr. Cotton alluded to earlier, there'll be specific presentations about things that are in this budget, things that will also affect future budgets. And we'll bring back answers on any of the questions that you have on the presentation. On March the 11th, there'll be another work session. You will adopt your budget, which will be sent across the street to the city. And on May 23rd, hopefully, there'll be a reconciliation. Before the 25th, the February 25th meeting, it hasn't been the case in the last several years, but the original schedule is that the General Assembly will adopt a budget before that. But that has not happened in the last several years, so it could be that we go to May again and really not know what revenues are going to be. But right now, the schedule is for the General Assembly to adjourn prior to February 25th. And Dr. Cotton is available?
We have a question, please. Ms. Lucente, Mr. Bunn?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi.
Hey, great job tonight for the presentation. The questions I have, though, you talked about possibly a 3% increase for employees. Does that increase also include part-time employees like part-time custodial workers, cafeteria workers?
Yes, it's for all employees.
Okay.
We did leave some language in there for the salary study. As we mentioned earlier, there may be some specific employee groups that we need to address as well, and that's why we're putting those funds aside, just in case we can address some of those next year if we get the salary study in enough time to do that.
Okay. We have a question, please, Mr. Mercer, and then Dr. King.
Okay, we've been dancing around this, so I want to make sure our language is clear. Are you recommending at least a 3% raise?
Yes.
That's my recommendation.
Okay, I just, because
Yes.
at some point it was said that around 3%, that makes people be a little bit, so at least a 3% raise.
Yeah.
Can I ask you for just a second, because things look very good. If I'm reading this right, are we talking about our health insurance policy? There'll be no change in it?
Again, it's very early to tell, as we're only 2 months into the planning year. We're hopeful that there will be minimal change, especially to the employees. If it should happen that we do have a 5% increase, then normally what happens is we split that cost with our employees, but our hope is that it will not be as high as 5%. That's really a guesstimate at this point.
Are we going to split premium increases at whatever rate they are? Are we going to continue that amount?
Yes. it would-
Okay. And I guess well, you've said yes to that, so the answer to that is one of the things that really kind of disturbs me in dealing with this. I know that everybody has equality, but there's not equality when you're looking at these premium increases with our bus drivers and those cafeteria workers that qualify, and our staff, some of our staff workers who don't make the same salary as teachers and as administrative staff. And so it's more of a burden on them, and it actually can sometimes come back. I don't think it is in this case, but it's going to take a larger hunk of that 3% raise from them than it is for other people. And I don't know how we address that unless you just you do a premium holiday as far as the increase. And we've done that in the past, but it's been a number of years since we've done that. And that's just a concern I just want to bring out, that I know Ms. Lucente and I have had that discussion on many times, and she knows how I feel about it. But I know Mr. Murphy's going to talk about bus drivers, I think, in just a moment, and I'll steal from him. But, there's some concern there about that premium and what it does, that it's unequal as far as what it takes out of people's salary increases.
Yeah, as we get a little further along, we'll have more discussions
Okay.
about that.
Okay, Dr. King.
That addressed my question.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Dr. Cotton, I know you and I have talked, and what was the figure you came up with to do $1 an hour raise for the bus drivers? And I know I might be catching you off guard here.
Yeah, I can look that up for you.
Yeah, maybe we talk about, because obviously we're not making any decisions tonight, and it really doesn't matter until we hear back from City Council in May anyway, right?
Sure.
Yeah, if we could take a look at that, and then start taking a look at, because I don't know about you, but over the last 4 years, the biggest thing we have is not having enough bus drivers.
You're right.
I mean, it's just almost on a daily basis, I hear from some parent or somebody, I think we don't need a salary study to know that we need to give them more. And when we do that, can we take a look at what are they paying, like next door? You know, because I know they're not obligated after they do the training, so they're not going to work for, we're not going to compete with HRT. You know what I mean, if they go there, but maybe another school division or something like that.
Yes. And Mr. Murphy, we have looked at that, and we have several incentives and initiatives that we've been costing out and looking at, but you're exactly right.
Yeah.
We already know we have a problem, and we're already addressing some
And
of
then
those
that kind of helps address maybe what Mr. Mercer was saying, that maybe this is an employee group that we need to do a little bit more than just a straight 3%, if they get an extra $1 an hour or $2, whatever that cost could be. Because I would certainly, before submitting a budget to City Council for what those needs are versus what we anticipate the revenue is going to be, just like we did last year.
Yeah, we want to be
think-
the highest paid
Yeah.
paying
We
our bus
want them to
drivers higher
come
than
here
others.
instead of, we want them to leave other places and come to us.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one more question, Ms. Leary.
I don't have a question, but I'd also like to throw in something for nurses too. Now, we need to really look at making sure the nurses are getting the things that they need, the salary that they need, because we have so many children in the schools that have so many medical needs that I think we need to make sure that that's looked at as well.
Sure. And both of you have mentioned employee groups that we're looking at, which is really why the salary study is so important.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all.